Dr. Emily Thompson pressed her face against the window of the shuttle as it descended through Glacius Prime's swirling snow clouds. The research station below looked like a child's toy scattered across the endless white landscape. After 3 years of studying alien species, this was her first time meeting the Valaxians, and her heart wouldn't stop racing. The shuttle pilot's voice crackled over the speaker. 10 minutes to landing, Dr. Thompson. Weather conditions are normal, if you can call constant blizzards normal. Emily smiled at the joke. The temperature outside was minus 40 degrees, but that was a warm day on Glacius Prime. She checked her heated suit one more time, making sure all the settings were correct. The last thing she wanted was to freeze during her first meeting with the alien research team. The landing pad came into view, and Emily saw them. 5 Valaxians standing perfectly still in a straight line. Their crystalline bodies caught the dim light of the system's distant sun, making them sparkle like living diamonds. They didn't wear any protection against the cold, which made sense since their species evolved on a planet with temperatures that would melt steel. As Emily walked down the shuttle ramp, her boots crunching in the fresh snow, she noticed how the Valaxians tilted their angular heads in perfect unison to watch her. Their movements were always precise, always measured. That's why Earth had chosen this species for the Joint Research Station. They were the most logical and careful aliens humans had met so far. "Welcome to Research Station Glacier 1, the tallest Valaxian said in a voice that sounded like wind chimes in a breeze. "I am head researcher first sequence. We find your presence here highly irregular." Emily blinked in surprise. This wasn't in any of her briefing materials. Irregular. I don't understand. Our governments agreed to this joint mission months ago. Correct? First sequence said. The irregular aspect is your species' choice to station themselves on an ice world. Our data shows that humans require significant protection to survive here, yet you volunteered for this assignment. Most irregular. A gust of wind blew snow across the landing pad, and Emily saw something that made her smile. Behind the line of senior researchers, partially hidden behind a storage unit, 3 younger Valaxians were watching with obvious curiosity. They moved more freely than their elders, their crystal bodies swaying slightly as they whispered to each other. Sometimes humans choose to do things precisely because they are challenging, Emily explained, remembering her training about being direct with Valaxians. We find satisfaction in overcoming difficult conditions. Satisfaction from difficulty. This requires further study. First sequence declared. Please follow us to the station. We have many questions about human behavior patterns. As they walked toward the main building, Emily heard excited whispers from the young Valaxians following behind them. She caught fragments of their conversation. Did you see how the snow moves around her feet? Why does the protective suit have those extra pieces on the hands? The human's face shows many small movements. What do they mean? Inside the station's airlock, Emily removed her hood and shook off the snow. The young Valaxians gasped, when they saw her hair fall loose around her shoulders. One of them reached out as if to touch it before quickly pulling back their crystalline hand. Your external appearance changes shape, one of them exclaimed, then quickly fell silent when the senior researchers turned to look. First sequence made a sound like tinkling glass, their version of a sigh. You must excuse the juniors. They have not yet achieved proper emotional regulation. Emily grinned, her breath now visible in the station's cold air. No excuse needed. Curiosity is essential for any good scientist, isn't it? The young Valaxians straightened up at her words, trying to look more dignified, but she could see excitement literally shimmering through their transparent bodies. She had a feeling that her time on Glacius Prime was going to be very interesting indeed. As she followed first sequence toward her quarters, Emily caught sight of other humans through the station's windows. They were outside, setting up some kind of equipment in the snow. One of them slipped and fell, and instead of getting angry, they laughed and made what looked like a snow angel where they had fallen. The Valaxians watching this display looked absolutely baffled. Emily knew right then that bridging the gap between human and Vilaxian understanding was going to be her biggest challenge yet, and she couldn't wait to begin. Technical Officer Mike Anderson stood in the station's main meeting room, trying not to laugh at the confused faces of the Vilaxian researchers. He had just announced the station's first official snow day, and the aliens looked like they were trying to solve a complex math problem. Let me understand this correctly. First Sequence said, their crystalline form reflecting the room's lights. You want to stop all non-essential research activities to go outside and manipulate frozen water formations. That's right, Mike said with a grin. We call it playing in the snow. Dr. Thompson mentioned you were interested in studying human behavior patterns. Well, this is a pretty important one. Emily sat in the corner, taking notes on her tablet. The young Vilaxians who had been so curious during her arrival 3 days ago were now pressed against the observation window, watching other humans already outside putting on their snow gear. But what is the purpose? Another senior Vilaxian asked. What data will be collected? Mike scratched his head. Well, the purpose is to have fun. You know, enjoyment, entertainment. The room filled with the sound of tinkling crystal as the Vilaxians all shifted at once. The concept of doing something just for enjoyment seemed to make them uncomfortable. I volunteer to observe this activity. One of the young Vilaxians suddenly spoke up. Emily recognized them as the one who had almost touched her hair. For scientific purposes, of course. First Sequence made a sound like wind chimes in a storm, their version of a frustrated sigh. Very well. 3 research teams may observe the human snow manipulation behaviors, but maintain safe distances and record all observations. Mike's face lit up. Actually, we were hoping you'd join in. I brought extra heated suits that should fit over your crystal forms. The senior Vilaxians backed away slightly, but the young ones moved forward with obvious excitement. Emily watched as Mike helped the first volunteer into a heated suit. The sight of a crystalline alien wearing human cold weather gear was both funny and touching. Outside, the temperature was even colder than usual, but Mike didn't seem to notice. He walked to an open area and began pushing snow into a pile. The Vilaxians watched with their recording devices ready. First, Mike announced, we're going to build a snowman. It's a human tradition that goes back hundreds of years. You build replicas of your species from frozen water. A young Vilaxian asked, their voice full of wonder. Is this a religious practice? Mike laughed. Nope, it's just fun. Here, watch this. He rolled a snowball along the ground, making it bigger. The Vilaxians' crystalline bodies literally lit up with surprise as they saw the snow accumulate. The physics are fascinating, one of them said, running some kind of scan. The pressure of rolling causes the snow to compact and adhere to itself. But why give it humanoid features? Why not? Mike replied, sticking 2 sticks into the sides for arms. Sometimes humans like to make things look like us. Makes it friendlier. A younger Vilaxian stepped forward hesitantly. May I assist in the construction? Of course. Mike showed them how to pack snow properly. Just be careful with your strength. You want to compact it, not crush it. The aliens' first attempt turned the snow into ice, but they quickly learned to be gentler. Soon, they were carefully crafting a perfect sphere for the snowman's head, their crystalline hands glowing slightly with concentration. Emily watched as more Vilaxians gradually joined in. Even some of the seniors were taking turns touching the snow, though they insisted they were only gathering tactile data. One young Vilaxian discovered they could use their natural crystal growing abilities to create beautiful patterns in the snow. Look, they called out excitedly. I have made it more aesthetically pleasing. The snowman now had intricate frost patterns swirling across its surface, catching the light like diamonds. Mike stepped back and nodded approvingly. Now that, he said, is what we call a team effort. Who wants to learn about snow angels next? The Vilaxians all raised their hands at once, then looked embarrassed at their own eagerness. But Mike just smiled and started clearing a space in the snow. The great experiment in teaching aliens how to play had officially begun. Station Commander James Wilson sat at his desk, reading the strangest request he had received in his 15 years of space service. The document in front of him proposed Project Winter Fun as an official cultural exchange program. What made it unusual was that both Dr. Emily Thompson and First Sequence had signed it. "Let me get this straight," James said, looking at the odd pair standing before him. "You want to make snow activities a part of our official research?" Emily nodded eagerly while First Sequence's crystalline form sparkled under the office lights. "Commander," First Sequence said, their voice chiming like bells, "we have observed fascinating changes in our younger researchers since the snow manipulation event 3 days ago. They show increased creativity in their regular work and improved problem-solving abilities." James raised his eyebrows. "Really? Just from building a few snowmen?" "Not just snowmen," Emily jumped in. "The Valaxians have started experimenting with different snow construction techniques. They're combining their crystal-growing abilities with snowpacking. It's incredible. We've never seen anything like it." First Sequence pulled out a data tablet, their fingers clicking against the screen. Productivity has increased by 27% in teams that participated in the snow activities. Even more surprising, they are asking questions about other Earth-winter traditions. James leaned back in his chair, trying not to smile. When Earth had chosen Glacius Prime for the Joint Research Station, everyone thought the constant snow would be a problem. Now it might turn out to be their greatest opportunity for cultural exchange. "Very well," he said, pressing his thumb to the approval screen. "Project Winter Fun is officially authorized. But I want safety protocols in place. We can't have anyone getting hurt out there." Emily beamed. "Already done, sir. Mike and I have prepared presentations on Earth winter traditions, starting with the safest activities first. The Valaxians are actually amazing at following safety rules. We excel at protocols." First Sequence agreed, and James could have sworn he heard a note of pride in their chiming voice. Later that day, Emily stood in the station's main hall, facing rows of attentive Valaxians. Their crystalline bodies sparkled with different colors, showing their excitement even as they sat perfectly still. "Today," she announced, "we're going to learn about winter festivals on Earth. These are special times when humans gather to celebrate the cold weather and snow." The young Valaxian who had helped build the first snowman raised their hand. "Is that why humans invented hot chocolate? As part of these festivals?" Emily laughed. "Actually, yes. Many of our winter traditions involve warm drinks and foods. It helps us stay comfortable in the cold." "Fascinating," First Sequence commented from the back of the room. "The humans create enjoyable experiences from survival necessities." Mike, who was setting up the presentation screen, grinned. "Wait until they learn about ice skating. That'll really blow their minds." The room filled with the sound of crystal chiming as all the Valaxians started asking questions at once. Emily held up her hands for quiet, still smiling. "One thing at a time," she said. "First, let's talk about something simple: snow forts." The presentation screen showed pictures of elaborate snow structures on Earth. The Valaxians leaned forward as one, their bodies literally glowing with interest. "These are defensive structures," one of the senior researchers asked. No, Emily explained. "They're for playing games. Sometimes humans pretend to have snow battles, but it's all for fun." "Pretend battles?" First Sequence's voice held a mix of confusion and curiosity. "As a form of combat training. More like a way to experience excitement safely," Emily said. "Humans often turn serious things into games. It helps us learn and grow while enjoying ourselves." The youngest Valaxians were now whispering excitedly among themselves, their crystal bodies flickering with changing colors. Emily noticed that even some of the senior researchers were taking detailed notes. "Tomorrow," she announced, "we'll have our first snow fort building contest. Teams will be mixed, humans and Valaxians working together." The room erupted in chiming sounds of approval. As Emily watched the Valaxians discuss potential fort designs, she realized that Project Winter Fun might become much more than just a cultural exchange. It could change how these logical beings viewed the entire concept of play. Lisa Martinez stood at the top of the gentle slope behind the research station, holding a bright red plastic sled. 20 Galaxians watched her with their crystalline bodies glowing in various shades of blue, their color for nervous excitement. Sledding, Lisa explained, is all about controlled falling. You sit in the sled and let gravity take you down the hill, deliberately falling. A young Vilaxian named Clear Chime asked, "Is this not dangerous?" Lisa patted the sled with her gloved hand. "That's why we have safety equipment. The sled helps us control our speed and direction. Plus, the snow is soft. If you fall off, it doesn't hurt much." First sequence stepped forward, their crystal form catching the dim sunlight. "Our research shows that human children often engage in this activity. Yet you are an adult." Communications Officer Martinez, "Please explain." "Some things are too fun to grow out of," Lisa said with a grin. "Watch this." She sat down on the sled and pushed off. The Valaxian's nervous chiming filled the air as she slid down the slope, steering with slight shifts of her body weight. When she reached the bottom, she threw her arms up in celebration. "See, perfect safe landing," she called up to them. "Who wants to try first?" The Valaxians looked at each other, their bodies flickering with uncertainty. Finally, Clear Chime stepped forward. "I volunteer," they said, trying to keep their voice steady. "For science." Emily Thompson, who was recording the event, helped Clear Chime into a heated safety suit and helmet. The young Vilaxian sat stiffly on the sled, gripping the handle so tightly their crystal fingers were glowing white. "Relax," Lisa called from the bottom of the hill. "Just lean slightly in the direction you want to go. Let gravity do the work." Clear Chime nodded, their helmet bobbing. Emily gave them a gentle push, and the sled began to move. What happened next would be talked about in the station for months. Clear Chime, trying to follow Lisa's instructions about leaning, overcorrected. The sled spun in a perfect circle while sliding down the hill, but instead of being scared, Clear Chime let out a sound like tinkling wind chimes. They were laughing. The sled came to a stop next to Lisa, and Clear Chime sat there for a moment, their crystal body pulsing with rainbow colors of pure joy. That was. They paused, searching for the right words, highly irregular and wonderful. The physics of movement combined with the sensation of speed created an unexpected pleasure response. Up on the hill, the other Valaxians were now crowding forward, all wanting to try. Even First Sequence was examining the spare sleds with scientific interest. "The design is quite efficient," they noted, running their crystalline fingers along the smooth bottom of a sled. "The curve ratio allows for optimal speed while maintaining stability." Mike Anderson, who had joined the group during Clear Chime's ride, laughed. "Wait until you see what happens when we wax the bottoms. They'll go even faster." The younger Valaxians lit up at this news, but First Sequence held up a hand. "One modification at a time. Please, we must maintain proper testing protocols." Throughout the afternoon, more Valaxians tried sledding. Some spun like Clear Chime, others managed straight runs, and a few even figured out how to make the sled jump slightly over small snow bumps. Each successful run was met with crystalline chimes of celebration from the watching crowd. Emily kept recording, but her camera often drifted to the Valaxians who weren't sledding. They had started to subtly copy human gestures, clapping their crystal hands, jumping up and down with excitement, giving high fives with their glowing fingers. "Look at this," she whispered to Lisa during a break. "They're learning more than just sledding. They're learning how to express joy." Lisa nodded, watching as Clear Chime helped another Valaxian position themselves on a sled. Maybe that's what Commander Wilson meant about this being more than just cultural exchange. We're not just teaching them human activities. We're teaching them how to play, Emily finished. And they're teaching us that joy is universal, even if it comes in crystal form. From the top of the hill came another round of chiming laughter as first sequence finally took their turn on a sled, maintaining perfect posture all the way down. Engineer Bob Miller held up a perfectly round snowball, presenting it to the gathered Vilaxians like it was a precious gem. After the success of sledding, the humans had decided it was time to introduce one of Earth's most beloved winter traditions. This, Bob announced with a grin, is a snowball, the basic building block of winter warfare. The crystalline aliens immediately shifted backward, their bodies flickering with alarmed purple lights. First Sequence stepped forward, their voice chiming with concern. Warfare. This violates 17 different safety protocols. They declared. Commander Wilson specifically stated no dangerous activities. Emily Thompson quickly jumped in. It's not real warfare. First Sequence. It's a game, like the snow forts we built last week. The snowballs are soft and designed to break apart on impact. Clear Chime, who had become the unofficial bridge between human and Vilaxian culture since their sledding adventure, moved closer to examine Bob's snowball. Their crystal fingers glowed as they scanned it. The density is quite low, they reported to the others. Impact force would be minimal. Bob demonstrated by throwing the snowball at a wall. It burst into a harmless puff of white powder. The Vilaxians watched with scientific interest, their earlier alarm fading into curiosity. Now here's where it gets interesting, Bob said. Your crystal structures might actually give you an advantage in making perfect snowballs. Want to try? The younger Vilaxians looked at First Sequence, who made a sound like tinkling glass, their version of a sigh. Very well, but we must establish proper safety protocols first. What followed was the most carefully organized snowball fight in human history. The Vilaxians created a detailed rulebook, including acceptable throwing speeds, designated safety zones, and proper snowball construction techniques. Bob just smiled and let them work out their concerns. To everyone's surprise, the Vilaxians turned out to be natural snowball makers. Their ability to control crystal formation let them pack snow into perfect spheres with just the right density. Soon, they were producing snowballs that looked like they had been made by machines. Remarkable, Mike Anderson said, watching a young Vilaxian create 5 identical snowballs in under a minute. They turned it into an art form. The first actual snowball fight was more like a carefully choreographed dance. The Vilaxians moved with precise calculations, throwing their perfect snowballs in graceful arcs. They had divided the field into geometric sectors, each team taking positions based on mathematical formulas. Then Bob did something that changed everything. He ducked behind a snow fort and threw a snowball while laughing. The spontaneous action caught the Vilaxians off guard. That move was not in the protocol. One of them called out, but their voice held more excitement than complaint. Clear Chime, who was on Bob's team, made a decision. They grabbed a snowball and threw it without calculating the trajectory first. It hit another Vilaxian with a soft puff, and both aliens froze. Then, something magical happened. The hit Vilaxian's crystal body began to glow with rainbow colors, and they let out a chiming laugh. The sensation is enjoyable. After that, the careful organization broke down into genuine play. Vilaxians ducked and dodged, their crystal bodies flashing with colorful lights as they threw snowballs and got hit. Their laughter chimed across the field like a symphony of bells. First Sequence watched from the sidelines, taking notes on their tablet. Fascinating. They are displaying increased capacity for adaptive behavior and spontaneous decision-making. Emily grinned. In other words, they're learning to have fun. Indeed. First Sequence paused as a stray snowball flew past their head. Perhaps I should gather some first-hand data. To everyone's amazement, First Sequence stepped onto the field, formed a perfect snowball, and threw it with pinpoint accuracy at Bob. The human engineer's surprised laugh was joined by a chorus of crystalline chimes as the Vilaxians celebrated their leader's participation. You know what this means? Mike said to Emily as they watched the scene. We're going to need a bigger snowfield. The game continued until the sun set, and even then, the Valaxians kept using their natural glow to light up their snowballs like shooting stars in the darkness. Medical Officer Jessica Taylor stood in front of a simple igloo she had built that morning. The Valaxians gathered around it reminded her of curious children on their first day of school, their crystal bodies gleaming with different colors as they studied the snow structure. "This is how humans survived in cold regions before modern heating," she explained. "But nowadays, we mostly build them for fun." Clear Chime walked around the igloo, their crystal hand running over the curved walls. "The structural integrity is remarkable for such a simple design. But why is it dome-shaped?" "The dome is strongest," Jessica said. "It supports its own weight and keeps the warm air inside. Want to try building one?" First sequence stepped forward, their crystalline form catching the light. "We have studied human architecture extensively. However, this snow construction method was not in our database." "That's because it's not just about following plans," Jessica said with a smile. "Each igloo is unique. You have to feel how the snow packs and adjust as you build." The Valaxians looked at each other, their bodies flickering with uncertainty. They were used to exact measurements and perfect calculations. The idea of building something without a detailed blueprint seemed to make them nervous. "Maybe we can combine our methods," Jessica suggested. "You know how to grow crystals, right? What if we mix that with igloo building?" The younger Valaxians lit up at this idea, literally, their bodies glowing brighter. They quickly divided into teams, each taking a section of the snowfield. Jessica watched in amazement as they began to work. The Valaxians started with traditional igloo shapes, but then they added their own touch. They used their crystal growing abilities to strengthen the snow blocks, creating patterns of frost that looked like delicate lace. Each team took a different approach, and soon the field was filled with amazing structures. One group made an igloo that sparkled like diamonds, its walls reinforced with tiny ice crystals that caught every bit of light. Another team built a spiral shape that seemed to defy gravity, held together by a network of crystalline supports. "This is incredible," Mike Anderson said, walking among the structures. "They're turning science into art." Even First Sequence seemed impressed. They moved from building to building, scanning each one with their data tablet. The combination of human practical design and Valaxian crystal engineering has produced unexpected results. The most surprising creation came from Clear Chime's team. They had built what looked like a regular igloo, but when you stepped inside, the walls were covered in ice crystals that acted like prisms. The light from their glowing bodies bounced around the space, creating a rainbow-like show. "We adapted the concept of human decoration," Clear Chime explained proudly. "It serves no practical purpose, but it is beautiful." Jessica noticed that none of the Valaxians corrected Clear Chime's use of the word beautiful, a concept they had previously dismissed as too subjective for their logical minds. Commander Wilson came out to inspect the new structures. He walked through each one, nodding appreciatively. When he reached Clear Chime's rainbow igloo, he stopped and smiled. "You know," he said, "I think we just invented a new form of architecture. Human ingenuity plus Valaxian precision. It's a perfect combination." The Valaxians straightened with pride, their bodies glowing brighter. First Sequence made a note on their tablet. "Perhaps," they said thoughtfully, "there is value in combining different approaches. The results are more interesting than following one method alone." Emily Thompson, who had been recording everything, smiled at Jessica. "They're not just learning to build with snow. They're learning to experiment, to try new things. And to appreciate beauty," Jessica added, watching as more Valaxians entered Clear Chime's rainbow igloo, their crystal bodies adding to the light show inside. As the sun began to set, the field of illuminated ice structures looked like a magical city. The Valaxians kept working, their glowing forms moving between the buildings, adding new details, trying new ideas. They had discovered something humans had known for a long time. that sometimes the best creations come from playing with no particular goal in mind. The morning of the first annual Glacius Prime Winter Festival dawned clear and cold. Commander James Wilson stood at the station's main window, watching ships land on the visitors' pad. News of the Vilaxians' transformation had spread across the galaxy, and now representatives from 12 different alien species had come to see it for themselves. "I still can't believe how big this has gotten," Emily Thompson said, joining him at the window. "3 months ago, we were just building snowmen." "Look at them now," James replied, pointing outside. Clear Chime was leading a group of young Vilaxians in setting up the festival grounds. They had combined their crystal growing abilities with everything they'd learned about snow construction to create an amazing winter playground. Ice slides sparkled next to perfectly formed snow forts. A maze of rainbow igloos glowed with inner light. They had even built a special sledding track with crystal rails for safety. "The delegates from the Martian colonies are arriving," Mike Anderson called out from his communication station. "And you're not going to believe this. The Vilaxian High Council itself is sending representatives." First Sequence's crystal form flickered with nervous energy. Everything must be perfect. "Clear Chime, please verify the structural integrity of the ice sculptures again." But Clear Chime was too busy teaching a group of young Andromedans how to make snowballs. Their crystal body glowed with bright colors as they demonstrated the perfect packing technique. "Remember," they said to their alien students, "it's not just about mathematical precision. You must also feel the joy in creating it." Emily smiled at First Sequence. They'd come a long way from highly irregular, haven't they? The festival officially opened with a spectacular display. The Vilaxians had prepared a synchronized crystal growing demonstration, creating huge ice formations that caught the weak sunlight and split it into thousands of rainbow beams. The visiting aliens gasped in amazement. Bob Miller organized the first event, a grand snowball fight that included safety briefings in 6 different languages. The Vilaxians proudly showed off their perfect snowball-making techniques to the other species. Soon the air was filled with flying snow and the sounds of alien laughter in many different forms. Lisa Martinez ran the sledding competitions, where Vilaxians demonstrated their newest invention, crystal-enhanced sleds that glowed as they raced down the tracks. Even some of the visiting diplomats couldn't resist trying it out, their formal dignity forgotten in the excitement of speed and snow. "This is unprecedented," a member of the Vilaxian High Council said to Commander Wilson. "Our species has always valued logic and order above all else. Yet these young ones have discovered something new through what you call play." "They haven't lost their logic," James replied. "They've just added joy to it." As if to prove his point, a team of Vilaxians was explaining the physics of igloo construction to fascinated alien scientists, while simultaneously having a contest to see who could make the prettiest ice patterns on the walls. Jessica Taylor had set up a hot chocolate station, carefully modified for each species' biology. She watched as Clear Chime taught a group of visiting aliens the human tradition of adding marshmallows to their drinks. "The sweetness enhances the experience," Clear Chime explained seriously. "Though it serves no nutritional purpose, it creates happiness. Happiness, we have learned, is very important for optimal functioning." The festival continued as Glacius Prime's sun moved across the sky. Different alien species tried all the winter activities, with Vilaxians happily teaching them everything they had learned. There were a few slips and falls, but each one was met with helping hands and encouraging words. Emily, recording everything for her research, noticed something remarkable. The Vilaxians were no longer just copying human gestures of joy. They had developed their own. Their crystal bodies would pulse with colors, creating beautiful light patterns that spread from one to another like a happy infection. "You know what the best part is?" Mike said, watching a young Vilaxian doing snow angels with a group of alien children. "They're not just following our example anymore. They're making these activities their own." The festival would go down in galactic history as the beginning of something new, a proof that joy and logic could exist together, that play could bridge the gaps between the most different of species. And it all started with a simple snowman. 6 months after the Winter Festival, Dr. Emily Thompson stood before the Earth Science Council, presenting her research on play behavior in non-recreational species. The room was packed with scientists, diplomats, and even a delegation of glowing Valaxians. The changes we observed on Glacius Prime went far beyond simple cultural exchange. Emily explained, showing videos of Valaxians teaching other alien species how to build snow forts. What began as a simple snowman has evolved into a galaxy-wide phenomenon. In the audience, Clear Chime's crystal form sparkled with pride. They were now Earth's first official Valaxian cultural ambassador, a position that would have been unthinkable a year ago. The most significant finding, Emily continued, wasn't just that Valaxians could learn to play. It's that play actually improved their problem-solving abilities and creativity in all areas. First Sequence, who had traveled from Glacius Prime for the presentation, stood up to share their own data. Their crystal body now naturally shifted through gentle color changes as they spoke, a new trait many Valaxians had developed to express emotions. Our research efficiency has increased by 42% since incorporating recreational activities, they reported. Young researchers who participate in regular snow days show marked improvement in creative thinking and adaptive responses. The Valaxian High Council had taken notice. They had already approved plans to build similar research stations on 3 other ice worlds. Commander James Wilson had been promoted to oversee all of these new facilities, with Mike Anderson and Lisa Martinez helping to train new staff. But the real success story, Emily said, showing new footage, is what's happening on the Valaxian homeworld. The video showed crystal cities, where young Valaxians had created special cooling chambers for snow activities. They had adapted the games for their hot climate, using their crystal growing abilities to maintain the right conditions. Bob Miller had helped design the cooling systems, and Jessica Taylor had trained local medical teams about the health benefits of play. They're calling it the Glacius Revolution, Emily explained. For the first time, Valaxian children are being encouraged to play as part of their development. Clear Chime stepped up to join Emily at the podium. We have discovered that joy is not irregular at all, they said, their voice chiming with happiness. It is essential. Like humans, we are learning to combine work and play. The presentation ended with recent images from Glacius Prime. The research station had tripled in size. New ice architecture dotted the landscape, combining Valaxian crystal patterns with human design. The sledding tracks now included advanced features for different skill levels, and the snowball fight arena had become a professional sports venue. Last week, Emily said proudly, the first Interstellar Winter Games were announced. 12 species have already signed up to compete. After the presentation, Clear Chime approached Emily with excitement. The council has approved my proposal. We will start teaching crystal growing to human children. They can learn our precision while we learn their creativity. Emily smiled, remembering that first nervous Valaxian who had almost touched her hair months ago. Now Clear Chime traveled confidently between worlds, teaching and learning with equal enthusiasm. Commander Wilson's voice came through on the communication system. Emily, you won't believe what's happening at Glacius Prime. The Andromedans have figured out how to combine their floating technology with our snow sports. You need to see this. As Emily and Clear Chime rushed to watch the feed, she thought about how far they'd come. What started as a simple cultural exchange had grown into something that was changing the galaxy. Species that had never played were learning to have fun. Logical races were discovering creativity. Barriers between different civilizations were melting away like snow in the sun. You know what the best part is? Clear Chimes said, their crystal form glowing with all the colors of joy. This is just the beginning. We have so many more games to invent together. And somewhere on Glacius Prime, in the endless snow, new friendships were being formed, new games were being created, and the sound of human laughter mixed with alien joy in the cold, bright air.